Such a long-standing campaigner for justice and against war. I want to introduce to you Lindsey from Stop the War Coalition.
Well, thank you very, very much, Claudia, and thanks to everybody for this incredible turnout. And it's marvellous to see so many people. I'm not entirely surprised because we in our office today, I had to take 2 lots of headache tablets today, which is very little compared to the trouble that the people of Gaza are going through, because the noise was just constant. We had people banging away making placards, we had the phone ringing all the time, we had people coming in to get leaflets, and every single person who comes, the message is the same. They are absolutely fed up with what is going on, they are disgusted by what they've seen over the last month on their television screens, and they are determined to be on the streets of London on Saturday to show the biggest possible demonstration. And I believe it will be one of the biggest demonstrations, perhaps the biggest demonstration that we've ever had on the question of Palestine in this country. And when people say that there's been a ceasefire and will that mean lots of people don't come, I have to say my experience is people don't seem to have noticed there's been a ceasefire. I'm sure the people of Gaza have got a few days of respite, but they're finding when they go back to their homes have been trashed, they've got graffiti on the wall, they've thrown all sorts of computers and things out of the windows. This is what they're finding in the last couple of days. But also this is a 3-day ceasefire, and does anybody trust the Israelis with a word that they say? They said last week we'd have a ceasefire, then they said a soldier's been kidnapped. Now note the words, usually soldiers are captured in battle, not kidnapped. But if you're an Israeli soldier, you've been kidnapped. So okay, the soldier's been kidnapped, it's all over the BBC. The BBC are immediately asking everybody, what about this kidnapped soldier? It turned out to be a lie. It turned out to be a lie which was there to break the ceasefire of last week and to make sure that they could continue to hammer the people of Gaza. So I don't think that people now believe that a short-term ceasefire or even a long-term ceasefire changes the basic situation that the people of Gaza and the Palestinians as a whole are in, and therefore it doesn't change our determination to be there on Saturday. And that is for the reasons that people have said. This isn't just about the latest attack, which after all is the 3rd of these bombardments in 5 years, and that is bad enough. It's about the siege, it's about the settlements, which are illegal settlements and which are absolutely hideous, and it's about the basic injustice which the Palestinians have suffered now for nearly 70 years since the establishment of Israel in 1948. And so whatever reason we're all going on it, whatever the thing that we're most concerned with, whether it's the question of boycott, whether it's the end of the siege, whether it's the question of the settlements, whether I think one of the things we should be calling for and the demonstration is for a recall of Parliament, because why should these people be on holiday? Why should they be sitting on a beach when people are dying? And I think for me as well, and perhaps for lots of people of my generation, it does remind me of South African apartheid in all sorts of ways. In all sorts of ways. In terms of the basic way in which the Palestinians are treated, in terms of Israel now being, and it should be, a pariah state which has no decent recognition internationally because it doesn't deserve to have that recognition. But also when you look at the disparity, when you see the people who have water and swimming pools and villas and all these sorts of things, and then you see the conditions under which the Palestinians live, it makes you absolutely sick that these things should exist side by side without the basic elements of equality and justice that we should all be standing for. Now, I think this week there has been quite a change in terms of the political situation in this country. And that is because even this government is now under tremendous pressure over the question of Gaza. Baroness Wolsey resigned on Tuesday. Now, you know, I'm not a big fan of Tories normally, but actually, or ever really, but I hope I'm not offending anybody in the audience. But I do think that a lot of the things that she said were absolutely right, given her reasons for retirement. She says David Cameron's government is morally indefensible, and that is a polite way of putting it, really. It is. There's plenty of morally indefensible things about it on other issues, but on this question, Cameron instructed every single one of his politicians and ministers that they were not allowed to say that Israel's response, we'll come on to that in a minute, that Israel's attack was disproportionate. They were forbidden to use that word, even though this is a word which actually has its basis in international law, because you're not allowed to make a disproportionate response. Now, I don't know, I mean, my maths aren't very good, but I would say nearly 2,000 people killed in Gaza versus, well, about 70 people killed on the Israeli side, only 3 of them civilians. I would say that's a kind of disproportionate balance sheet if you're going to look at it like that. I would also say that one of the things I'm heartily fed up about is the idea that Israel is defending itself. Isn't it an incredible thing? Isn't it an incredible thing that Israel has this sophisticated air force and army and all these tanks that you see pulled out to the border of Gaza and all these different kind of things, and this is a defensive force, whereas Hamas is supposed to be on the attack. Now, why isn't it that the Palestinians are defending themselves? Why can't they say they're defending themselves? They have a case for that. After all, they've been occupied, they've been driven off their land. All of those things have happened. So I think that one of the things that makes me most fed up about the British government, and actually about the BBC, is its complete acceptance of the Israeli PR agenda on all of this, and they do it time and time again. Don't you think Israel's got the right to defend itself? This isn't about defence from attack, it's about occupation. And actually, again, if you look at international law, and this was formulated after the Second World War because of the role of the resistance movements in a number of countries, people do have the right to defend themselves if they've been occupied. They do have the right to resist. So this isn't about terrorism either. And how many times have we heard the term terrorism applied to people who later on became heads of state, or like Nelson Mandela, Margaret Thatcher, even in the 80s, was describing him as a terrorist, who now has a higher standing in terms of their reputation in the world. So we should remember that this is something which is said about all those sorts of things. And the BBC tomorrow, you'll be pleased to know, is broadcasting the Disasters Emergency Fund appeal for Gaza, because it's a humanitarian crisis, we've been told. Isn't that good? They refused to do it in 2009, and Tony Benn went on the BBC and read out the phone number that you could send the appeal and said what a disgrace it was they'd done that. Why are they doing it now? Well, one reason, because there was such an outcry 5 years ago, but the other reason that they're doing it is because they say that Israel agrees there's a humanitarian crisis. So Israel gives them the right to broadcast the DEF broadcast. Where is the logic in that? And where is the logic? I hope people do give, and I'm sure people will give in large amounts of money to the appeal. But where is the logic of us giving Israel arms and selling Israel arms, and the Americans giving them $3 billion a year in order to attack the Palestinians? Where's the logic in that? And then we're supposed to cough up to pay to repair the damage that they've done when they've ruined schools and mosques and universities and hospitals and all these other kind of things. So all of those, it seems to me, we have to reject. Just one final point that I want to make. They always talk about this as though it started with the present crisis. Will you condemn Hamas? Well, no, I won't. But I always say this didn't start with Hamas. Long before Hamas was even thought about, there was the injustice to the Palestinians, and there were people who resisted all the previous situations. And there is a history here. Murad talked about 1948, when the British had a very big role in helping to establish the State of Israel. But remember what came out of the First World War, which we commemorated this week with all the royalty and the Prime Minister and all these people in Westminster Abbey. Let's remember what happened there. Sykes-Picot drew up the Middle East at the end of the Ottoman Empire and drew it up for the benefit of the Western empires and not for the benefit of the local people who lived there. So let's remember all that. Finally, just let me say this. That system of empire, that system of imperialism is still there. And it's caused damage not just in Palestine. Look at the disasters that are now Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, the threat of war in Ukraine. Do not believe what these people are telling us, because they are driving us more and more to war, and there is a whole system here which they are trying to get us to accept that we have to have more wars and that we have to pay for more wars. The fight of the Palestinian people is part of a fight against those people. Tony Blair, the most obvious representative of them. I mean, nobody obviously checked the CV there when he got the job as envoy for peace in the Middle East. Let's remember, these are the people who brought us these disastrous wars in the past, who repeatedly defended Israel's attacks against the Palestinians, and let's be there on Saturday to stop this atrocity, but let's also stop the future wars that they have planned. Thank you very much.